We'll break down the mistakes many players make at this stage that ruin their chances of turning around and what the best players do right so they stay on the ball and have a chance to win it. So let's dive into the video and know more about the mistakes one should avoid while playing pickleball. Standing your ground at all costs. This strategy never made sense and will never make sense, even though it was propagated by well-meaning coaches and fellow players and is still propagated in some cases. There isn't a sport that I can remember where you don't come back to the court or field to defend yourself and give yourself time and space to absorb and disperse the attacks that are coming. You're only sitting still if you stay there and have a very slim chance of getting the ball back in a useful way when you see a massive, full-force attack coming your way. They barely give themselves any response time. Well, if you find that your opponent's current strongest punch is quite weak, then by all means stick with it if it doesn't stress you out. You'll be fine. However, for this video, we assume that they could carry some pretty threatening power. The smartest thing to do is to save time and make a backup copy. Many backed off and practically ran before shooting while making a half-hearted defensive attempt by throwing the racket at the ball. That's not going to work. Your chances of winning that point are almost nil by keeping up a strong shot like this. The right thing is to make a quick backup. Balance and tuck your feet under you before your opponent makes contact so you don't fall behind on the punch. So that's key number one. Quickly relax and balance yourself by leaning slightly forward while hitting so you hit the ball, and do not run away from it. Standing too tall. This goes hand in hand with step one, stepping back and balancing. One way this can get messed up is that many players stand too tall even though they are backing off and keeping their balance. This works against you because the ball will often fall low. If your opponent is smart, it will either hit the bottom leg or deep and wide. Forcing you into low contact is very beneficial to them because it increases the likelihood that you will send it back to them so they can either continue to attack or miss you completely. You'll achieve a lot dealing with this hit. You'll also struggle when you have to move to return fire if you don't have squats ready to give you explosive strides to reach the ball and need to move. Another huge, often overlooked but very important benefit is that you also need to lower yourself so that your body can absorb some of the momentum of the incoming punch. Too much swing. We often see too much movement going on when resetting and blocking by hand. This can refer to too many backswings or too many follow-throughs. Usually, when you're being attacked by an opponent with full fire, you don't need to move the paddle too much. It shouldn't move at all or very little. Your opponent has expended nearly all of the energy needed to return the ball over the net. Your main task is to redirect them to the right angle so that the web clears and still falls into the kitchen, or at least creates a low point of contact for them. When performing attacks at low speed, around 60 to 70% of their maximum speed, you may need to push forward a bit and use small arm movements, but too many players overdo it and swing too much with blocks and reset. This will kill the shot. Now that that's out of the way, let's look at the other mistakes made with different parts of the arm and hand when defending that difficult shot. Overly tight arm and grip. We hear a lot about overly tight grips when blocking and resetting. And it's true, many people often have a contact grip that is too tight, which results in too much rebound energy on the ball, and the ball shoots off your racket and goes higher, harder, and lower than you intended, leaving you exposed to repeated hits. So yeah, loosen that grip. Grip it just enough to keep the paddle steady, but loose enough for your hands to increase the speed of the ball. But it doesn't stop there. To achieve looser arms, your entire arm, starting at the shoulder, should also be on the looser side, so that can also help pick up speed. And remember, when we talked about bent knees, your whole body is involved in taking velocity off the ball, not just a loose grip doing the work. Find a balance between acting as a wall for the ball to bounce off and having enough softness in your body to absorb the ball's necessary velocity. Getting the blade face angle just right, plus the right amount of sag to smooth the finish, is the key to a successful block. And it depends on feelings. Knowing this alone won't get you very far, so you'll need to practice endlessly to master it. Non-specific training. I'm a big fan of sustaining a hard streak with a reset, and one of the easiest ways to do that is to start in the transition zone, stay there, and reset from there. It will take you very far, and yes, it will help you with this skill. But what you're missing here with this exercise is building up reserves, resetting defenses to follow suit again. You lack time for separate steps, alignment, and successfully transferring your swing back into neutral, forward, and all the other nuances in between that make this a unique skill when you combine all the pieces. Resetting and blocking. Dripping and blocking hard shots is probably one of the most difficult, if not the most difficult, skills in pickleball. Professionals routinely state that this skill is the one they practice the most. You should also place a lot of emphasis on blocking and reset training. Having a great defense is a huge advantage, so go out and catch it. Scooting up after the serve. The most common mistake I see is that they rise slightly after serving. The problem is that the returning server hits the ball as low as possible, And if you are out of position after your shot, you have to run backwards or you will have a hard time returning shots. Instead, stay on the baseline after serving so you can get a good return. Fancy spin. The next mistake is getting too fancy in your rounds as a beginner. Turns are very important when you are an advanced player, but as a beginner, you want to focus on your technique more than anything else. Getting too pretty too quickly can get you into trouble with mistakes. Smashing balls too early. Another very common mistake among beginners is trying to squish the ball too early. If you're starting to get impatient with your drink, you need to work on it. Kitchen faults. Kitchen distractions are also very common because a kitchen is not the easiest thing to understand. Fortunately, we have a lot of information about kitchen rules on our website. You can't be in the kitchen firing a salvo. Poor serve techniques. As we said before you do anything fancy, focus on your technique. Beginners often have difficulty serving because their hands tend to twist. Keep the paddle perpendicular to the ground and you will have more success. Not taking centerline shots. If you are a complete beginner or new to the sport of rackets, dominate with your forehand. They are very dominant with their right hand, so the forehand for these players is when the palm is facing the opponent. What you want to do as a forehander is taking shots that are coming from the center when they are facing you because your forehand is stronger.